Real quick, a quick disclaimer before heading into my review for Spider-Man 2. This video will not contain any spoilers for the most part, and if there are any spoilers covered, you will be notified. Ever since 2018, following the success of Spider-Man PS4, I have been eagerly waiting for Spider-Man 2. I know technically we got Miles Morales in 2020, and although it was still incredible, I never considered it a full game like Spider-Man 1 and 2. Regardless, heading into this year, Spider-Man 2 is my most anticipated game hands down. Despite the other masterpieces to come out this year, that includes Dead Space, Remake, RE4 Remake, Final Fantasy 16, Tears of the Kingdom, this was hands down my most anticipated game. With all that being said, did this game live up to the hype, at least the hype I had for it? No. I don't think Spider-Man 2 lived up to the hype. I think it exceeded the hype. Quick disclaimer, some of the footage you see for this review is footage from my live stream over on Twitch, twitch.tv/MrWonderful436. The VOD should be up as the time this is being posted. For my playthrough, there's two VODs, one 6-8 hours-ish, and the other like 11 to 13 hours. So if you want to go watch those and see my playthrough, feel free. They should be on my channel. If not, they should be out shortly. To start this review, I want to start with what Insomniac has managed to get right in all their previous Spider-Man games so far, which have been the story. I'm probably not the first person you've heard say this so far, but yeah, the story for this game is pretty good. It's actually really good. I was worried when this game got announced and they revealed Venom that Insomniac would go overboard with some of the stuff the fans wanted and kind of lose focus what Insomniac wanted. And as we all know, we saw earlier this year that nobody wants a fan-written Spider-Man story. It never really turns out well. You know exactly what I'm talking about for Spider-Man fans. So I'm happy that I was very wrong in that aspect, and Insomniac delivers another game with the story at the forefront and another emotional Spider-Man story. The first act is more of what you know from the first game, but the second and third act kick it up to a whole new level, and like I said, it delivers another emotional and heavy Spider-Man story. The big thing in this story is since they used the Sinister Six in the last game, which accounted for a lot of Spider-Man villains, other than Venom, they had to go with Kraven the Hunter, which I feel like, growing up for me personally, he was always one of my favorites. I don't know why, I always thought he just looked cool. Even though in the cartoons I watched, I feel like he never got like a truly crazy rep. Like he's never like one of the main villains like Electro or Rhino or Mysterio or Green Goblin or Doc Ock. So I was super excited to see him, but my biggest concern was that because they brought Venom in, he would kind of just be the throwaway villain of the game, and just kind of segue into the Venom part of the story, kind of like Mr. Negative. Mr. Negative played a big role in Spider-Man PS4, but not as big as Doc Ock or the Sinister Six, in my opinion. People may disagree, but that's just my personal opinion. This certainly is not the case, and Insomniac provides one of the most intense and genuine, horrifying villains in their short series of games. When I finished the game, I found myself equally as terrified of Kraven as I did with Venom. Insomniac really crushed the villains in this game, and it will be interesting to see how they follow them up in if they decide to make a Spider-Man 3 in Spider-Man 3. Like the two villains in this game, there's also two Spider-Men, Miles Morales and Peter Parker. And while when I played it, I personally felt the story leaned more Peter Parker, I do think Insomniac does a great job at also tying Miles Morales in. He's more of the heart of the game. He's more of like the soul. I feel like a lot of the cute, more lighthearted moments follow Miles. Obviously, Peter, for those who know the symbiote story, goes down a very dark path. And so without Miles, I feel like the game kind of would sink a little bit, maybe become too dark or too edgy or something. I think they do a really good job at tying Miles in, and I really think he gets his time to shine near the third act of the game. Okay, so minor spoilers coming up, so skip to the timestamp you see on the screen. That will be when the spoilers end, but I'm just real quick going to get into some spoilers. So, you've been warned. Timestamp on the screen. Okay, let's get into it. So Peter in this game, obviously, is dealing with the symbiote, if you've seen any advertisement or, you know, we've been mentioning it. So he's dealing with the symbiote, and gameplay-wise, it's very, very fun. It's probably my favorite abilities in the game are all four of the symbiote ones. You get like the punch or the ones where you lift everyone in the air. Those abilities are so fun, but the game does a very great job at, while you want to keep the symbiote for the gameplay and you're having a lot of fun, you also see that Peter is kind of losing his mind, which normal comic book stuff. Peter's kind of a douche. I mean, some of the stuff he says is beyond fucked up. Take this clip, for example.
This suit is the only reason I'm still alive.
Yeah, it's pretty great, isn't it?
Why don't you pop some more pills and say what you're really feeling?
Hey,
Oh
don't.
my god!
My ass out there trying to save you.
The reason I show that clip and the reason I bring this up is is that I think what the story does really well is that obviously on a gameplay level, you're back to the basics. You're back to just the spider arms, which are cool on their own. But the symbiote really shines, especially like with everything added into it. Like the DualSense controller like fucking goes crazy when you're using the symbiote suit. But the game makes it so important that Peter removes the suit because he's so far gone at this point. This is not the Peter we know. Obviously in the comics and in the movies, it's the same way. But still, they do a really good job. They emphasize, like I said, he says some really messed up stuff. So that when he does take it off, you don't feel upset that he lost, that you're losing that gameplay. You're happy that he's got rid of the suit. And I think it's really well done. You don't even really think about it until like a little later. You're like, oh dang, I don't have this ability when you try to use it. But the game makes up for it in two really big ways. We talked about the story a little bit. Now I want to talk about the gameplay, specifically the traversal and the combat. Obviously, that's like really the two only elements of the game to talk about. People all over the internet have been talking about the traversal system, and rightfully so. The traversal system might be the best in any game I've played. It feels so fluid, it's fresh. The cool thing about this game that I really appreciated is that there's actually a traversal skill tree, and I found when I first started the game, me upgrading that skill tree before any like the combat ones, because it is so much fun to swing through New York City in this game, especially with the stuff they've added. The big one that people talk about is the web wings, which rightfully so, they add so much to this game. The way you can travel through the city is, so in the first one, if you jumped off a high skyscraper, they were never like multiple skyscrapers by each other. They were usually pretty spread out. Like the Avengers Tower was not by the Empire State Building. So you would have to jump off and dive to a lower level to the lower buildings. In this game, you can open up the web wings high up and kind of fly around till you get to another tall building, or you can dive down and use that momentum to speed up your gliding, and then when your momentum dies, you can swing on the webs. Or you can find a wind tunnel, which is like pretty much like a bazooka tunnel. Like it shoots you really fast through it, and then when you get to the end of it, it shoots you out, and it keeps you glide really fast, and then you slowly lose your momentum. But then again, you can just keep swinging on webs to keep the momentum. So it's super cool, super fresh. It adds so much replayability to the game. I literally load up my 100% save, and I just swing around because it's so much fun. And when you have the traversal fully unlocked, it is ridiculously fun. The footage on the screen right now is the example of the wind tunnels, and this is a side quest that is one of the weaker side quests, but in this game it's fun because of how great the web wings are. In most games, this would be a more boring side quest because you're not doing much, you're just going through this tunnel. But the way the web wings feel, the way you traverse through them, it's so fresh, it's so fun. And then when you add these wind tunnels to just the open world, it's perfect. Another big thing in this game that is different, and this is kind of where I differ, I think, from some. The combat in this game is a lot different than the first Spider-Man, because in the first Spider-Man, it was more gadget-oriented for Peter. In this one, there's gadgets there. There's 4 gadgets and then 4 abilities. So they've kind of toned down the gadget aspect of the game, but I kind of prefer that, in my opinion, because I think in the first game, the gadgets were cool, like the web grenade and the web, trip mine thing. But they almost made you too overpowered, and they made the game feel really easy, which was my biggest problem with the first game, is that the difficulty never seemed hard. I played that game on the hardest difficulty every time I replayed it, and it was way too easy to replay. This game, you actually have to think about what gadgets you want to use and the abilities. You can't just dump them all real quick, because you get a lot of enemies thrown at you, especially in the second and third act. You are literally getting bombarded by enemies, so you really have to kind of approach each battle and think about what you're going to do. You can't just dump everything into an enemy, especially the boss fights too, because some of these boss fights have multiple phases, and sometimes the abilities take a long time to recharge. The next thing I want to talk about that I liked in this game, believe it or not, is the MJ missions. So, in the first game, I never hated them when I first played the game. My biggest gripe with the MJ missions is that when you replayed the first game, they got really stale really quick, because there wasn't a lot to do. Like, the different paths didn't really do much. You're still pretty much doing the same thing every time. But in this game, I mean, in this mission right here, it looks pretty similar, but later in the game, she gets upgrades to that little taser she's holding, and it starts feeling more like a Last of Us game than a Spider-Man game, which, you know, to each their own, but I think that's fucking awesome. I really enjoyed the later missions, especially the way they frame them in terms of the story. I think they're really well done, and they're just unique and different, and they're, I think, everything I wanted them to be in the first one, which is why I enjoy them. The last segment I will be talking about contains heavy spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, there will again be a timestamp on the screen right here. Click on that, you'll hear my final thoughts and my score of the game. But if you've already played the game, I'm going to dive into some spoilers and some things I really want to talk about before we end the review. The last thing I really want to talk about with this game is the amount of twists and unique story they tell here that really makes the story stand out and really makes me praise the story. There are so many times in this game where I said, that is so cool, or my jaw dropped to the floor. I will insert some clips right now.
On your knees!
Ah, they did not! Yo, no way! No way!
Spider-Man, wake up! Go!
No! No! No way! It sucks that I had to put this part of the review at the end and it's spoilers, because the reason it's at the end is that this is what makes this game so special to me and why I love this game so much, because this is a Spider-Man game for Spider-Man fans, made by Spider-Man fans, and Insomniac truly understands the character. They understand the moments that make Spider-Man special, and they deliver on every level. Playing Venom is one of the best parts of the game, and you only play about 10 minutes of him. But every minute is so perfect, and everything the fans wanted, that it feels so earned, and it makes the story so fresh and fun. It truly bleeds like they are fans of the character, and that's why I love Spider-Man 2 the most. Because you can tell that every person at Insomniac wanted this game to be special, and they wanted it to be a good Spider-Man game. Thank God it's a good game, but it's even better that they made it a good Spider-Man game. With all that being said, I think many people can guess what I'm going to give this game. Personally, when I ended the game, I said, I don't know if this is Game of the Year, but I sure as hell know that it is my favorite game of the year. This is the game I had the most enjoyment playing. I smiled like I did when I was 8 years old, 5 years old, however old, when I watched Spectacular Spider-Man for the first time, and it recaptured everything, every reason I love Spider-Man. So, for me, Spider-Man 2 is Insomniac's best game. It is my favorite game of this year, and it is a 10 out of 10. Here it is.